of my nature enthusiasts and all of you dirty-minded people who accidentally clicked on the link. This is Sadie and we are with Girl Gone Wild. Today, we are going to take a look at the plight, the struggle, and the current status of the endangered Florida Panther. A subspecies of the Western Cougar, the Florida Panther is perfectly adapted for life in Florida's marshes and swamps.
Yeah, Western Cougar may have a home range over 200 square miles and obviously a lot of land to cover, but these guys can live on dry island hammocks and swim very well, something that you don't see the Western Cougars do as frequently as you would find the Florida Panthers doing. They do adapt to a more of a wet, environment, marsh and swamp and areas, so they're able to come and go out of these habitats a little bit easier than some species.
Despite these adaptations, the Florida Panther is clinging to survival, thanks in part to loss of habitat. With less than 180 adult cats in the wild, your best opportunity to see one of these magnificent creatures is at a zoo or an animal care facility. Our team had the opportunity to travel throughout Florida and speak to wildlife experts. Along our journey, we encountered Uno, a rescued Florida Panther who could possibly exemplify the struggle that the species is facing better than anyone else can. Let's take a look.
Uno was found by Fish and Wildlife actually up near Immokalee. He had been shot in the face. So he actually was taken by Fish and Wildlife up to Lowry Park Zoo and was treated there at their new vet clinic. He was severely emaciated. He's about half the weight that he is now. So it's hard for a cat who uses its sight to hunt to survive on nothing but its nose and what it can come across. They're carnivores. They eat pretty good sized meals. So to have to survive on just tiny little scraps you can find on the road and hope that you can come upon it is a pretty big deal. So yeah, absolutely, coming into the care of us here at the Naples Zoo was basically a lifesaver because he most likely wouldn't have been able to survive in the wild for much longer.
In 2014, the mortality rate of the Florida Panther hit an all-time high of losing 30 cats in 1 year. Unfortunately, in 2015 and 2016, this record was exceeded, losing more than 40 of them in a single year. Now, according to some scientists, this is a positive sign that the species may be rebounding. But after speaking to expert Lonnie McCaskill, this is still a significant loss.
It could be very significant loss. It could also indicate that their numbers could be increasing. So the number of animals are being hit by cars. That means there's maybe more crossing the road. But yeah, a loss like that is significant to any size of the population, as low as the Florida Panther is.
The Florida Panther plays a very important role to the ecosystems right here in Florida. They are what we call an umbrella species. As the top predator here in Florida, they are keeping the ecosystem in balance and protecting all of the species that fall under the same habitat umbrella.
When you save the habitat for one animal, you're also saving it for many other species. They're kind of considered like an umbrella species. So if you're saving habitat for the Florida Panther, in turn you're saving habitat for the black bear also, or the American crocodile, or the American alligator, since they coexist in the same habitat. What's good for one is actually good for many. Kind of something very similar to the Florida Panther, the story of the timber wolf. It was extirpated out of Yellowstone National Park in the early 1900s. In the early 1950s, botanists started noticing that there was no new recruitment from any of the major species of trees there. They couldn't figure out why that was. The story behind that was there were no timber wolves to prey on the deer and the antelope and the elk, so those numbers grew exponentially, and they would eat up all the seedlings. Ironically, too, several species of raptor disappeared. The beaver disappeared from Yellowstone National Park. When wolves were reintroduced into Yellowstone National Park about 10 years after that, they noticed that their seedlings started coming up. Birches and willows around the stream beds started coming up. The wolves are there starting to move the antelope. Instead of just sitting there in one area and eating everything, the wolves kept the herds moving and thinned the numbers down, and actually plants started coming back. And 10 years after that happened, beaver moved back into the area, and also so did raptors. So without the cover, you know, for rabbits and things like that, there were no food for the raptors. So really the reintroduction of the wolf into Yellowstone emerged a whole nother kind of a reverse evolution of things. So you really sometimes don't know when an animal, a species is taken out of the environment, what effect it's going to have long term.
Picture this. You're cruising down the highway, you got your driving snacks, and you're almost at your destination. You don't want to let the food rot in your car while you're gone, so you figure, it's biodegradable, I can probably toss this out the window. However, tossing your food scraps out of the window do bring scavengers like raccoons and possums closer and closer to the highway. Unfortunately, these animals oftentimes do become roadkill, and this then attracts the Florida Panther to make their way closer to the roadways, looking for that easy meal ticket. The #1 leading cause to Florida Panther mortality is vehicle strikes. So no matter where you are, you can help the Florida Panther simply by properly disposing your trash once you get to that destination. Thank you so much for hanging out with us here on Girl Gone Wild, where all of your wildest dreams come true. Make sure you tune in on our next adventure, where we are hanging out with the gator specialist, Tim Williams, as he takes us up close and personal with some of Florida's largest alligators.